We're Laura and Cindy, and you're listening to the Holistic Horsemanship and Husbandry podcast, where we talk about natural horsekeeping and deepening your connection with your horse. I'm Laura, your horse care mentor. I teach natural horse management practices after working with over 200 horses and seeing how current industry standards are compromising the health of the horse.
And I'm Cindy, your horsemanship mentor, offering a proven and unique approach to creating deep connections with your horses from 20 plus years of experience, including working with wild Mustangs. If you enjoy this conversation, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to us so we can get this podcast into the ears of more passionate horse people.
Today we're going to talk about bits and spurs. There's so much information out there about when you should bit up and what's a bit for, and oh, he's not going forward, so put spurs on, and you should never use bits and you should never use spurs. And our goal with this episode is to talk to you about basic information to empower you to be able to make those decisions on your own. Because feeling like you should use or not use a piece of equipment with your horse because someone else is forcing that on you is a really yucky feeling. And if you know how they work and you know kind of the philosophy behind what their intended use is, you can make an empowered decision about it on your own.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation that I think really deserves more attention than it's getting. I have had clients who want to know, well, should I get a bigger bet? They don't seem to be stopping or turning or doing what I want them to do. And maybe I should get spurs because I have to keep kicking and kicking and kicking. When I was early on in my journey, I had that same understanding because that's what was modeled to me through the people who were teaching me about horses. And obviously that's what was modeled to them. But it wasn't until I really started digging into being the best I could be for horses that I begun to understand. And the bits and the spurs are just like the halter and the lead rope and the training stick. I find myself hesitating, Laura, to say crops and whips because I don't like crops and whips.
The connotation that comes with it.
I feel like they're abused.
Yep.
And I guess that falls into the bits and spurs, sort of.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I saw the most egregious abuse of spurs at a clinic in 2022. And I lost all respect for the clinician because he didn't call it out. How dare you allow a horse to be treated that way in your clinic?
Those things are an extension of us. They are meant to enhance our communication, not to be the form of communication. So let's talk about that situation you saw of abuse of spurs.
A spur is for extremely refined, light communication. I don't even want to change the angle of my foot. I just want to put the tiniest little roll on my horse's hair. And there were legs coming up and air flying and, legs being slammed down onto this horse. And the horse was jumping up and going in pain. And the person was being told to push the horse through it so that he would stop doing that. And right there in front of my eyes, that horse was trained to behave through that pain. And I wanted to throw up. That is the correct response of that clinician would have been, take those spurs off or get out of my clinic, because that is not how you use spurs. If you use spurs, you have to be an extremely good rider who knows what your legs are doing all the time. My left leg goes numb in the saddle a lot because of my back problems. You will never, ever see me riding in spurs because I never, ever, ever want to be applying pressure with an aid like that and have my leg go numb and not know how I'm communicating with it.
Oh, well, you'd know.
That's true. MJ would be clear.
The horse you were on would be like, what the hell happened to your left leg?
Yes.
But, I was told years ago, early on in my journey of becoming the best I could be, And I define that for you guys. You'll hear me say that if you're listening to our podcast on a regular basis. First of all, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're our
And
favorite.
yeah. And second of all, I say this because I got my first horse when I was 11.
And there was nobody really watching you.
Well, those were the ones that were all teaching me the wrong stuff
Yeah.
because they were taught I call it the normal way versus the natural way. But it wasn't until 2000, which is a lot of my adult life of doing the normal thing before I discovered the natural thing, before the natural kind of got overgeneralized. But anyway, I was taught early on in that journey that when you no longer need spurs is the time to start wearing them. And I was kind of like, what the hell does that mean? But as I've grown, I realized that everything we use on our horses are an extension of us, even the saddle. But I also have had a wise horseman who coaches me from time to time. He will not put a bit in a horse's mouth because next to the genitals, that is the most sensitive part of the horse. And he creates bridle horses, which is the old traditional California vaquero way. It's very honored. It's very respected. It goes back to the Spanish school of riding.
It's extremely feel-based.
It's all feel-based. And he will not ever put a bit in a horse's mouth until the horse doesn't need that form of communication. And so what does that mean? Where are we going with this? We are teaching our horses, and we are striving to master and help them to master is lightness, energy feel through our focus and our feel and our timing and our balance, and to break it down even simpler, to give to pressure. And the way that a horse learns to give to pressure is not the pressure applied. It's your ability to release that nanosecond that you feel them responding to the pressure. That's all on us, Laura, not the horse.
And it's extremely important that they're responding to light feel pressure, not pain. I never, ever, ever, ever want to teach my horse to respond to pain. And if you're finding yourself bidding up because you're not getting what you want, or adding spurs because you're not getting what you want, you're teaching to respond to pain.
And when I am first teaching a horse about feel and about giving to pressure, I will apply more pressure than I want to ultimately be giving.
Yes.
Because we have to start somewhere. But what I will not do is apply pressure long enough and have them set back against it, that now we're in a stalemate of tug of war. If that is beginning to happen, I have to go from steady pressure to what we call rhythmic pressure and start bumping that rope, which it's an interesting concept that I teach my clients all the time, is that when you are applying pressure to your horse and they pull back, you are now essentially in a tug of war game with 1,000
You're
pound.
not gonna win.
You're not gonna win. I mean, I have watched very strong 6 foot 190-pound muscle men not win that tug of war. So when you find yourself white knuckling it, you need to apply rhythmic pressure, which is bump, 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 bump. And they cannot pull against a bump. I have yet to meet a horse that can pull against a bump. And if you want to know what we mean, is Get a girlfriend, get your hubby, get your girlfriend if you're a guy listening to this podcast, and thank you for listening. Pull, get a lead rope, and you both pull against it. And then one of you start bumping with your forearm, not your shoulder. You're going to jack your shoulder up with your forearm and watch how hard it is for that person on the other end to pull against that. So that's how I teach, but I always am striving for as light of a pressure, and as soon as they give, release. I ride in a snaffle bit. I love Mylar Comfort snaffles. I like the ones that have the copper roller in the middle to create salivation, and it gives them something to do. I will ride in a halter and a lead rope and teach my horse to give to pressure, but let's even back up further. I start them on the ground and I teach them to follow a feel as soft as we can get. I apply appropriate pressure when they're like, I don't think so, not today. I'm like, yeah, no, we're going to do it. And I teach them how to respond to my finger as my heel in the side of them, all on the ground before I ever get in the saddle. I make sure that they really have a clear understanding of pressure and release. How about you, Laura?
There's an energy that you're giving off with pressure and release. And when they learn to read the energy, that's when they're operating off the feel. And so I guess my brain keeps going back to the spurs because I just see it so much. He won't go under a saddle. He won't go under saddle. Put spurs on him. My horse needs to be able to go from a stop to a walk to a trot to a canter, back down again, based off of my body language and my voice before I ever get on her. And in that, I'm basically doing the upper body motion of what I would be doing in the saddle when I'm asking her on the ground. So that by the time we get to the saddle, the communication is locked in. Then if she doesn't go forward, it's like, oh, your saddle doesn't fit. There's something wrong. I need to troubleshoot that. But if you don't have that on the ground, and then you're taking your miscommunication to the saddle, you're going to find yourself kicking on your horse in ways you don't want to because you lost all your tools in your communication and you're left with no other option.
I love that point, because what you're saying and what I see with so many people that I work with or ride with or watch ride is it goes back to that thing we talk about: self-awareness, horse awareness, and environment awareness. What are we doing in our body when we're in the saddle and we're asking? Are we stiff and rigid and an arched lower back, which is driving our pubic bones down into their back, which makes them arch their back? So there's already a form of discomfort, and they're preoccupied. And then we're looking, not I witness, looking down at them, looking down between their ears at their nose and looking down. And so just while you're listening to this, even if you're driving, you can still do this. Look straight ahead of you out into the distance, like you're going to ride off into their hills or down that street, down that highway. And now look at the front of your car or look down in front of you and watch what your upper body does. Our horses do in their body what we do in ours. That's why Laura was saying, when she's teaching her horse to go through those transitions, she's doing it in her body on the ground so that when she gets in the saddle, she's laid down the muscle memory for not only her horse, but for herself.
Yep.
Because it's that energy, it's that focus of what are we asking for. And you watch those reining horses where they, race down and then they slide stop. And, they measure how long did the slide go. Well, they're lifting up and running like hell, and then they sit deep in the saddle and their feet go forward and their horse knows to slide. So all of our tools are just an extension of us. And what are we doing? We have to know what we're doing in our body. If we get on and we're tight and like, oh God, I hope this is going to go well, or he always,
I know he's gonna stop at the gate and I'm gonna have to kick him. And I want to make a point about those reiners. It is not uncommon to see a reiner riding bridleless. I think that's one of the most common, like high level competition horses that are being ridden bridleless. They are not bidding up to get that stop.
yeah.
They're sitting down and their body's communicating to their horse's body.
I don't care what it is you want to do with your horse, what modality, what sport you want to do with your horse. It always comes to setting a solid foundation, and then you build. It's like building a house. If you build it on sand, it's not going to last. It's going to shift. It's going to cave to the environment. But if you build it on that solid foundation of trust, connection, and communication, which is the relationship, it's where your horse sees you coming and says, oh boy, what are we going to do today?
Yeah.
I got an idea. I don't want to ride. I want to play. I want to go for a walk, or I want to go for a ride. They let you know. And how do you know that they let you know? Is because you're building the relationship on that trust and that communication. You have given them permission to show you to have a voice.
Yeah.
And when you get that going, when your horse is like, excuse me, buddies, my person's here, then you can start the partnership. And we hope that you want to have a partnership that is built on an inclusive leadership. And we've talked about that in other episodes. We'll talk about it in more. But it's where it's a team. And when you get those things, that's the relationship is that concrete foundation. And then the partnership is now you're building your structure, and it can be a skyscraper and beyond. I don't know if that's really the analogy that I want to use, but that's kind of what I mean. Or planting a seed and letting it grow. Maybe that's better. Let it grow into an oak tree. Together, you nurture it.
And I love that you chose an oak tree because that's slow growth. And give it that time.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight. But in your selection of your tools that you're using, give your horse a voice. Don't force a bit on them that they don't like. I'm not here to tell you that you can never use a shank bit or you shouldn't be riding in a spade bit ever. If you want to go show at a super high level and develop that bridle horse all the way along and take it to the point where you're using that spade bit, go for it. But two things. One, whatever equipment you're using, you need to do your independent research, not what somebody told you because they're trying to bully you into bidding up when you're not ready. You need to know the action of that bit and understand what happens when you touch the rein.
And be very, very clear why you feel you need to go beyond a snaffle bit.
And usually that means super precision riding in a show ring. You don't need to be wearing a spade bit out on the trail.
There's a lot of trainers out there that rather than, and maybe they don't know how, so I don't want to say rather than, because we don't know what we don't know till we know it. A lot of trainers will put your horse in a heavy, really unnecessary, severe bit because they don't know how to help you help your horse.
Yeah.
But all people who are making those bridle horses, which is carrying a spade bit, they're not using the bit.
No.
They are using complete body language. You watch those hunter jumpers, you watch those dressage riders, you watch any of these upper level competitive people, they are all riding in snaffle bits.
Yeah.
Now, there's some other mechanisms that we don't need to go into, but I'm saying we are in the process of a paradigm shift of horsemanship and relationships with horses. And for those of us like Laura and I, who have, and many others that we respect a lot, who have devoted ourselves to understanding horses from the inside out and making this horse human relationship experience the best it can be for horses, not just for human enjoyment and pleasure and goals, but make it an equal, mutual, any other relationship. It's great for both.
And that means giving your horse a voice in the tack that you use.
And none of us who are on this journey are using our tools to get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
We can put a halter and lead rope on our horses bareback and get them to be as responsive as if they had a saddle, spurs, and a bit in their mouth. The spurs and the bit, when used properly, is for upper level refinement, where it's actually even secondary. First, you focus on it, you know what you're doing.
Yep.
Then you ask through your body. And if your horse misses it, then your reins and your bit or your spurs, very gently, like Laura said, just a rub, just a roll, not a jab, says you missed my cue. I don't know. Either I didn't ask right or you were looking at something else. But remember, this is what that means. So those are just extensions of who we are, and we're using them for more refinement, not more control.
Yeah. All the riders who come to our barn as beginners ride the lesson horses and the lease horses in bitless bridles, because that is what is fair to the horse. Now, those horses are trained, and we know that those horses are going to be safe to do that with because the time has been put in. But that is an important thing to know if you're not an extremely good rider and you are taking lessons or someone is encouraging you to bit up your horse. That's not doing your horse any favors. The fact that our horses are ridden in bitless bridles is a favor to the horse, because we know that these riders are going to be losing their balance and using their reins more than they should. And, the learning process is messy. So it's set up to be fair to the horse. And you need to be fair to your horse. And you need to listen to your horse, because when I got MJ, I was completely anti-bit. Never put a bit in DT's mouth. Always thought I would never ride with a bit. Loved a Bozell. Rode in just a halter, whatever. MJ hated the pressure coming from the outside of her face. Hated it. Throwing her head, popping up, threatening the rear, complete meltdown. And I just kept thinking, well, I'll get softer with my hands. I'll get softer with my hands. I get softer with my hands. And then I'm basically riding my horse bridleless. She's going along great, but if I touch the rein, she freaks out. And I pop a bit in her mouth, and she's so happy. And that completely changed my perspective on bits are bad. I listened to my horse, not my preconceived notions that I had, whether that means you need a really big bit to stop or bits are terrible. Listen to your horse. She was born missing a tooth, and I have to think that there's something happening right on the outside of her mouth there where when something touches it, she doesn't like it. So that's fine. We wear a very low profile single strap bridle and a bit. She's perfectly happy. Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever looked at your horse and wondered if they're thriving in your care? Is there more you can do to give them the best life possible? Most ranches and boarding facilities are set up for convenience, not horse health. But there's tons you can do to fix your horse's situation if you're willing to get creative. Join Evidence-Based Horsekeeping, my Facebook group where members learn how to improve the mental and physical well-being of their horses. The link is in the show notes.
Yeah, and I think that what is a good reminder in all of that is that we always want to meet the horse in front of us.
Yeah.
We always want to work with the horse that greets us that day, and never make the assumption because my old horse or my other horse or that horse I take lessons on, this is how we do it. So this is how we always do it. Because that's not true.
Right.
We all have multiple relationships in our lives, and we don't engage the same way with every relationship. They're all very unique, and they deserve to be recognized as unique. And if you're doing something with your horse and all of a sudden it stops working, we've talked about this with the saddle, but now we're going to talk about with the bit, and we're talking about moving forward off a feel.
Mm-hmm.
If your horse has been doing it and all of a sudden stops doing it, we highly recommend the first place you look is within yourself. What's changed with you? Then look at what's potentially changed with your horse, because usually something's changed. Something physically, mentally, whatever, something has changed, and they deserve for you to get curious and start asking questions. And this is just such a new thing that I think everybody should hear and really ingrain it as one of the golden rules, is all behavior is communication. I started out by saying all horse behavior is communication. But if you think about it, Laura, isn't all behavior a form of communication?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, my husband got a New York Times article about like how parenting puts a strain on relationships. And so we were kind of giggling and he was reading it out loud. The big takeaway from the article was, before you respond to the person or the being that you're in relationship is, ask yourself, or they were saying, state it out loud, the story I'm making up about this is.
That's cool.
Like, I think you're being an asshole because you're not going forward, right? Instead of, the story I'm making up about this is that you're being a butthead on purpose. Okay, I got that out of the way. Now I'm going to reach for my higher consciousness and ask, what's the truth here? And in a human-to-human relationship, the other person gets to come back with the story that's in their head and you get to meet. But with our horses, we have to give them space and work on our awareness so that we can have the story.
I saw a Facebook post today, and I'm starting to see more and more of them. So this is a hot topic in the paradigm shift. If we think our horses are being bad, story in my mind, then we are going to come from a place that they should be punished.
Yes.
Because, sadly but true, that's the way generation after generation after generation has had the adult, mature dog, horse, human, cat, whatever, discipline the child, right? You're being bad. We don't behave like that. Therefore, I must punish you to influence you to never do that again. And so I love that, because that's not only just for the relationship of the parents, it's the relationship for the parent and the child, the relationship for the horse and the human, the horse and the dog. I wonder how that would play out with Whiskey and Harry.
Yeah,
that wouldn't work. So
yeah, and it's just a really good gut check on what BS am I bringing to this that isn't real? And then it allows you to see behavior as communication. Okay, I'm going to take out my story and put it aside and ask you, what are you trying to tell me?
Which comes back to that self-awareness, horse awareness. And then we got to bring environment awareness in there, right? Because they may be behaving in a way that is not normal or desirable, because they feel a change in the barometric system that we are completely oblivious to,
Yep.
unless you have arthritis or metal in your body.
Just, I think it was my second time back in the saddle after having the baby. And we were going down the trail, and the trail ends where you walk along the whole property. And one of our horses had been moved out to the 5 acres. So he was pretty excited to be out in the big acreage. And he's buddies with MJ. And so they kind of have to he had been up further in the property where he didn't have horses walking by him all the time. And so they had kind of have to get used to the fact that their buddies walk by being ridden sometimes. And he saw her coming, and he's this huge 17-hand thoroughbred. He's massive. And he couldn't contain himself. He saw us coming, and I'm like, oh man, here comes Louis. He's gonna buzz us. And you hear him before you see him, and then he comes crashing through the bushes. And I'm like, oh, and we were just bad luck where we were at the point of the trail where I could have reached my hand out and touched him. He was so close to us. And he came zooming through at top speed. And I checked in with MJ for a split second, and I went, she's not gonna be able to contain herself on this one. And she said, I gotta go, and exploded forward a step and a half. And my body said, I know you gotta go, but you gotta go in a circle. And I brought it around. She spun hard once, came out of it and went, oh, that was so exciting, and walked on. And all of that was the awareness, the relationship. I didn't punish her for that. That's so exciting. She hasn't been able to run in a year, and she kind of knows she shouldn't. And she had a moment. And what was I going to do when it was over? Then go to beaten on her? No. She calmed down immediately. She had a burst of energy that had to go somewhere. And it all happened so fast. Like, had I had to think, oh, what do I do? Oh no, this is going to happen. Emergency stop. I would have gone flying. But because my muscle memory and my body awareness was there to feel the rise of energy of the whole environment and handle it, it was no big deal.
Yeah, I mean, you just perfectly described everything that, we're talking about. You didn't pull on the bit to control her. You had your awareness, horse awareness, environment, aka Louie, and the environment awareness, and the herd dynamics.
Yeah.
A horse having the energy of other horses in a higher gait than they are, coming into their space, instinctually, they got to go.
Yeah.
They got to go with the herd, whether it's fun or it's fear. They got to go because that's how in tune they are with each other. And everything you just described was everything we're about.
Yeah.
On this,
it was just like, oh my gosh, I haven't ridden in 6 months, and it's still there because of all the work that has been done.
And let's be very clear for our listeners. In that time that Laura was pregnant, MJ was a constant participant in that journey of pregnancy. So she got to feel the energy of that baby in Laura's womb. And yes, they feel that. Watch a herd of Mustangs, and if you can't tell the mare is pregnant, the other mares will tell you, as well as the stallions will. She got to be a part of that. She felt that growing, and Laura spent all that time on the relationship and how could she be better for MJ, because MJ was rehabbing at the same time, but she was always constantly like, how are you feeling? What are you saying? Let's go do this. Let's go do that. I mean, it wasn't
that I put her up for 6 months.
Right.
We put riding up, but we did not put us up.
Yeah, you were saying, I remember when you were close to delivering, you were like, I'm in better shape than I was before I got pregnant. Yes. From all the walking you guys were doing.
Yes, highly recommend if you're an equestrian who's going to have a baby. I attribute my quickly progressing labor to all that walking. Highly, highly recommend it.
And I'm doing this challenge with the Stop Soldier Suicides, where we're doing walking 30 miles in 30 days, and you're supposed to be doing it with your dogs, but both my dogs are lame. So it's like, well, damn. So I'm taking Harry And we're
Nice.
walking. We're
Good.
out there at 6 a.m. in the morning walking the trails. And he's like, we're walking. And I'm like, isn't it fun? And I am surprised. I've done 8 miles so far, and I seeing the difference in my legs in just 8 miles is amazing. And the fun we're having, Harry at first was like, woohoo, I'm gonna be a wild and crazy boy. But he quickly settled into it, and it's just such a great time to watch the sun rise walking with my horse.
Yeah. And just slow down and appreciate that their world with them. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're way off the topic of bits and spurs, but let's just leave you with the reminder of you and your horse are who gets to decide the tack that you ride in. It's your responsibility to know how that tack works and understand what forces and leverage are being used. Less is more. Make sure you're operating on a feel first and listen to what they're telling you.
And sit down and really get clear. Why are you choosing the tack you're choosing to use?
Yep.
Is it a quick fix? Is it other people have influenced you to do it?
Mhm.
Or is it because your relationship has advanced to the point that you're ready to refine your feel and communication? And again, as always, we'd love to hear what your thoughts are, and we are here to answer any questions that we could possibly help you with. So if you have any questions about the topics covered in this episode, send us a message on our Facebook page, Holistic Horsemanship and Husbandry, and we will answer your question in a post on our page. You will be anonymous. We'll just take the question and provide our input, and we want to do it on the post so that we can all learn and grow together, because nobody knows everything. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. We want to remind you that we'll be here every second and fourth Tuesday of the month, following the golden rule. Have a plan, but always be willing to be flexible. Don't forget to connect with us using the links in the show notes below.
If you learned something new today, had an aha, or walked away with a valuable nugget, you can say thanks by leaving us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening on.